What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Good morning. I don't even know why. I just felt like, combination. Felt like a little combo here. What's going on, everybody? Thank you very much for tuning in. Thursday, April 24th, 8 a.m. on the dot. Sliwa Show. The Sliwa Show. 1 hour of, I think we'll go an hour. We'll see how long we go today. Of a lot of NBA conversation today. A lot of NBA conversation. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Cheers to you, whatever you're drinking this fine morning. Already had a cup of coffee. Now I'm going tea. I don't know. I got this kind of new combination going here. I'm doing coffee and now I'm going to tea. I used to never go to tea. So whatever you're drinking, hopefully you're enjoying it, and we'll hang out here on this Thursday. All right, shout out to everybody hanging out. Please subscribe to the channel if you've yet to subscribe to the channel. What the hell are you doing if you haven't subscribed? What the hell are you doing? Let people know. Hey, Sliwa's on air every morning, 8 a.m. All right, we got a lot to get into today. I'm going to throw out a quote to everybody here real quick. If you want to share a quote with us, feel free to do so. I always say that. If you guys got a good quote that you think would help others, let me know. Far better is it to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in a gray twilight that knows not victory nor defeat. Look at Theodore Roosevelt going in. Win or lose. He's like, go take some L's and go get some W's. If you guys got a quote you guys want to share with everybody, feel free to do so. Let me give everyone a quick rundown of the show today, and then we'll get things started. I might be moving at a little bit faster of a pace today. I feel like I got a lot that I want to get into. All right, let me give everyone a quick rundown here real quick. Then we'll start taking a look at some of the comments. I'm going to start the show talking about what could be a second-round matchup for the Lakers. We'll see. Long way to go in this series against Minnesota. But I'll spend a little time talking about the Rockets over the Golden State Warriors yesterday. And then, obviously, the big news, the Jimmy Butler injury. So as we kind of get a chance to – we got a couple games already in the Lakers' first round. Everybody, I think, now has played 2 games. So yesterday were kind of the final stretch of games where everybody gets 2 games in. And as we kind of sit here, we look around the NBA, the dust settles. Where's every squad? Houston and Golden State are tied at 1 apiece. But that Jimmy Butler injury is going to have major, major impact. We'll see. We'll see how long he's out for. Who's in a better position right now? Who's in a better spot? As you sit here, we're looking at the Lakers and we're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Each squad is, obviously he's got to win. Each squad, I think you can look at and make a case. Hey, I like the Lakers spot moving forward better than Minnesota. Or if you're Minnesota, I'm sure you can make a case for them as well. We'll take a little bit. We'll take a look at that. Who's game 3 more important for? Is it more important? And I'm talking about this from more of a perspective. Of course, everybody's going to say, well, it's more important for the Lakers. But kind of looking at it, taking a step back, is game 3 more important for the Minnesota Timberwolves to win, or is it more important for the Lakers to win? As you look at kind of the scope of this series, we'll spend a little bit of time on that as well. The Athletic did a anonymous, not really a poll, even though I know they did a poll as well. That's why that's how we got that Tyrese Halliburton, most overrated player in the NBA, at least according to the players. But they did just kind of a reaction to the Luka trade. Some of the quotes are hilarious, just hilarious. So I thought that'd be fun to get into. Clippers host the Denver Nuggets game 3 tonight. I had somebody already in the chat when I was getting all ready to go for the show. They're like, Slee, why don't you get a media credential and go to Clippers and the Denver Nuggets? Brother, let me tell you where I'm going to be tonight. I'm going to be sitting on my couch watching that game. I ain't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I already went to 2 NBA games this week. I'm good. I'm good. Got that Saturday one in. I got what was the last Laker game? Tuesday night. That's enough for me right now. I'm going to enjoy that game on the couch. Sammy Long, who's done a phenomenal job for the channel, previewing all these games. He's going to come on at 8:30. We'll start previewing a little bit game 3. He's got a preview coming tonight that we'll promote as well. And then a couple NBA news, some games tonight that'll be going around in the NBA, and then we will call it a day. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. Let's take a look at some of the comments here. Can I at least get a sip of my tea? Oh, that's nice. Honey. Honey is the key to any tea that you have. The secret ingredient is honey. You got to have honey in there. All right, let me take a look at some of the comments here, and then we'll kind of get things started here. Look, this is the one I'm talking about. Slee, get a press. Not happening. Not happening at all. Not happening. Let me see here. Let's see what we got here. Good morning. NFL draft today. God bless the NFL draft. You have to go somewhere else for that. You know, I think as I continue to kind of do the show, getting a pretty good idea of what I think the channel will thrive on, and obviously NBA and Lakers is kind of the channel. So I'm gonna stick to what I think is the strengths of this channel. Let's see what I got here. Work. Let's see. If Jimmy is done, so are the Warriors. Might be right on that. Let me throw a quick quote in here. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Damn, that's phenomenal right there, and kind of a little bit of a wake-up call. Let's get a couple more of these here. Buenos dias. You as well. I appreciate you tuning in. It's a big game for Reeves. Got to step up. All right, tomorrow we'll be breaking that down a little bit more specifically. Maturity is the ability to delay gratification. That's a badass quote right there. This is actually not true. I think a lot of people care about the NBA draft. I just don't think I do. You know what I mean? So I think that has a lot to do with it. 4-6, last 10 on the road for the Lakers. That's a good quote there. I appreciate you sharing that. Love it, Slee. God bless the NFL draft. You have to go somewhere else for that. I'm just, I gotta kind of stick to, if we're a restaurant that's, we do a great job with dishing out burgers, then let's dish out burgers. I can't come in here and say we do burgers and sushi. Anyways, we'll keep things going here. All right, feel free to keep the comments coming in. I'll get to the comments as we go, and we'll get the show started. All right, let's. I want to go back to last night because I got a chance yesterday. I'm not watching all the NBA games, but damn, I'm catching as many as I can. And some of it kind of has to do with just scheduling. Other times, honestly, I just hallucinate. I can't sit from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock and just kind of do nothing other than sit on the couch. I mean, I know there's better ways to do it. I mean, hell, I could go for a walk or any of that stuff and just have the game on in the background. But I did want to catch Houston, and I did want to catch, obviously the Golden State Warriors. This is a series that I picked Houston to win. I thought after game one, I'm like, oh, well, I screwed that one up. There's just, the Golden State Warriors dominated game one. This series, there's really two other series that I have interest in other than the Lakers series. This series, because the winner of this series ends up playing, hopefully, the Los Angeles Lakers. Maybe my prediction of Lakers in 6. I'm not going to change it, but I think I'm starting to lean more towards this might be a 7-game series. We'll see what ends up happening. But that's why there's significance in this series. And I just think Clippers and Denver is a phenomenal series. That's just a really, really good series. I ran into Amin El Hassan, who came on the show, what was that now, about a month ago or so. He came on the show, and him and I were, obviously talking about the Lakers and everything else. But I saw him at the Lakers game a couple days ago on the Tuesday game. I asked him, hey, how long are you in town for? He's like, till Friday, because he's going to the Clippers and the Denver game as well. So I'm sure a lot of media members will be there tonight. That's been a phenomenal series so far. Those are really the two other series in the Western Conference. All right, a little bit of an impact to the Lakers, I guess you can call it, that I'm really keeping a close eye on. I'm watching the game yesterday, and, desperation time for the Houston Rockets. And you were not very far into the game. And just you want to talk about bad luck for the Golden State Warriors. Jimmy Butler goes up for a rebound. Draymond Green, kind of a little bit of contact with Amen Thompson. He kind of falls. How do I put this? Kind of his hands just goes right under Jimmy Butler. Just like the whole thing was odd. And Jimmy Butler just full contact to his back. Here's what they said. So I guess he's undergoing an MRI. in San Francisco today. He suffered a pelvis contusion, forced him out. Obviously, he only played 8 minutes is how many minutes he played. Warriors end up losing the game by 15. Steve Kerr, one of his quotes, I mean, if Jimmy's out, we have to rethink everything like rotations, who starts, best combinations, and all that stuff. Amen Thompson was obviously the one that came in underneath him. I will tell you this, and I think somebody had put it in the comments. What I think has made the Golden State Warriors kind of put themselves in a really interesting position in this series, and the reason why a lot of people might be picking the Golden State Warriors, and if the Lakers and the Timberwolves, we'll see what happens in this series. If the Lakers get through, why a lot of people are thinking, you know what, it's probably going to be Lakers and the Warriors in the second round. A lot of the reason why a lot of people did not want to play the Golden State Warriors in the first round, part of that was just the mere fact that, all right, you got to deal with the Golden State Warriors and Jimmy Butler and Steve Kerr and Draymond Green and Steph Curry in the first round. Can you get them a little bit later? Jimmy Butler is a big part of that foundation. Once that trade went down, if Jimmy Butler is not Jimmy Butler, I don't know where the Golden State Warriors go, because they kind of go back to that same team that is missing another key player / star in order to be really effective and to make some noise in this first round. I was looking up yesterday, which is really kind of a waste of time, because I don't know how Jimmy Butler is going to respond to this. They got to wait for the MRI, but I was looking at pelvis contusion. How long are you out for? And it said something like 1 to 3 weeks, but it also said it just depends. And it also said there's some NBA players that are out 4 to 8 weeks. I'm like, all right, well, I'm just not going to read this because it's irrelevant. The point that I'm making is, if Jimmy Butler is not there and he's not Jimmy Butler, I got a really difficult time thinking the Golden State Warriors are going to get past the first round. And it's not going to have anything to do with talent. It's not going to have anything to do with star power. It's not going to have anything to do with experience. It's going to have something to do with the player that they put all their stock in by making that trade with Miami right before the trade deadline would be out of the, obviously out of the series, or at least out a couple of games. That just completely changes the scope of this series. Yes, they could play Jonathan Kuminga. They can play some of these other guys, but we know obviously how impactful that would be to them. So something to keep in mind as the rest of, the playoffs go on. We'll see what eventually happens, but that was just an ugly fall and obviously just very, very bad luck for the Golden State Warriors, and we'll see what happens from here. All right, let me look at a couple of the comments here, and then we'll start talking a little bit about the Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Butler's fall was nasty. A couple of people saying hello in the chat. Let's see what we got here. The playoffs are Chippy Slee all the games, which is good. Can I tell you this about the playoffs so far? I don't know about this one. Looked intentional. I don't know about that. I will say this. The only thing that Amen Thompson that I looked at, I thought his hands kind of went out. Kind of didn't understand why that happened, and that kind of clipped Jimmy Butler. But I think we're reaching a little bit. I think we're reaching a little bit if that's the case in regards to thinking that Amen Thompson did something on purpose. I don't think that was the case. Butler's injury sounds serious. Oh, let me go back to the playoffs here real quick. For all the crap the NBA takes in regards to, what is this league? And these guys are just firing off 3-pointers and the game's not even, there's no defense. There's no this. Guys, so far in the playoffs, I don't know. I've seen chippiness between the Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks. I've seen definitely chippiness already between the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. I see low-scoring games. I see defenses completely shutting down either star players or role players or whatever the case is. I think whatever the perception of the NBA has been, I feel like so far in the playoffs that has not been the case. I feel like this playoffs have been a little bit more old school. I mean, just look at the 2 Laker games we've seen so far. I don't think the Lakers have got past 100 points in the first 2 games. Minnesota scored 85 points in their last game. Clearly, this is not the this clearly is not the same style of basketball that we are either watching earlier or maybe the style of basketball that a lot of people have been complaining about. So I don't mind it, by the way. I've said this before, and I've seen people I've seen people talk about this after the Lakers won game 2. There was a lot of people like, hey, I don't mind this slugfest. I don't mind that the Lakers aren't dropping 115 points. That's how I feel like kind of the playoffs have been so far as well. Thomas got pushed into Butler. Yep, that was Draymond Green. That a little bit of contact from Draymond Green. By the way, I genuinely don't think anybody had dirty intentions in anything. I just think that's just a terrible, terrible timing as far as the way that all happened. All right, let's see what else we got here. 2 dirty teams and Warriors and the Rockets. By the time the series is over, there'll be more bodies scattered. Slee, we can't afford to look ahead. Simply have no big to give Hayes. Let me say this. I'm not by no means am I trying to look ahead. There's no guarantee or lock. I did a couple. So yesterday, I had a couple radio stations reach out to me over these last couple of days and like, hey, can you come on? Can you talk some Lakers? Very normal, right? I was doing that a ton when I was 7'10", and actually I value this stuff so much more now that I'm on my own, because people clearly want my opinion still on the Lakers and the NBA. One of the interviews that I did, somebody had mentioned to me, they said, how do you see the Lakers championship chances right now? And my answer was, it's so hard to even think past Minnesota right now. Like, you're in a series tied 1 apiece. It clearly looks like these two teams are, evenly matched to an extent. I know there's some positives for the Lakers. There's some positives for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I told the guy, I'm like, how do you want me to think of getting through the Western Conference, or the Lakers in the NBA Finals, or the Lakers winning an NBA championship? They're tied 1-1 in round 1. They already lost home court advantage in round 1. So I can't talk about what a Lakers Warriors or Lakers Rockets would look like. Or after that, what the Oklahoma City Thunder would look like, or Clippers or Denver, or whoever ends up in the Western Conference Finals. And then you got Boston waiting for you. So definitely not trying to look forward, but I do think these teams that are, obviously right in the mix here, Lakers got a long path to go. All right, let's get a couple more in the year, and then I want to get some perception here. A lot of people giving their opinion. I feel like a lot of people are attorneys here. Amen tripped and stumbled. There were like 4 players tangled up. He just tripped. Some people calling it dirty. Other people saying that it was on purpose. I don't know. You guys can make that argument if you want here. Okay. So Houston ties the series 1 apiece. Series will now go back to San Francisco, and obviously we'll see what happens there. But certainly keeping a close eye on that series, and one of I think the better matchups. But if Jimmy Butler's not healthy, that changes everything here. Okay, let me kind of throw this out. I made a case here for both of these teams. I'll get your guys' opinion on it. We've got a chance to see now 2 games between Lakers and Minnesota. Okay, so there's coming into the series, I thought there really wasn't that much data on these 2 teams. There just really wasn't. These 2 teams, they had played each other one time after Luka became a Los Angeles Laker. And in that one time that they played each other, Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle did not play for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So we had a really difficult time kind of understanding who's got the advantage stylistically. What are these 2 teams going to look like? What do matchups look like? Okay, what's the depth look like? Well, now we got 2 games in. Through these 2 games, who do you think is in a more favorable position? I want to make a case for both of these teams, and I want to read some of your comments as well. 2 games in, you've got a chance now. Now there's less surprises. Now we kind of have a good idea of what both squads want to do. We know the amount of depth that Minnesota has. We know Lakers have more star power. 2 games in, who's in a more favorable position? Let's look at this first from a Wolves perspective, and then I want to look at it from a Lakers perspective as well. Just to kind of be point blank here, you took a game in LA. You stole home court advantage. So anybody that I think walks into a series and does not have home court advantage, and through the first 2 games gets to go back home with home court advantage, Clearly, that's a big, big piece of the pie. It's not 2-0 here, and you're just trying to go back home to tie up the series. It's 1-1, and you're going back home, and 3 of the next 5 games are going to be played in your arena if you end up going 7 games. You battled, by the way, even in the game that you lost in game 2, you battled to the end. I was listening to Charles and the Inside the NBA crew after the Lakers won game 2. Came home, kind of wasn't tired. So I'm watching some highlights, and I watched the Inside the NBA crew, and Barkley said something. He said that basically if Minnesota just didn't play so bad in the first 12 minutes, then Minnesota's right there. He's not wrong in that, but you still got to give the Lakers credit for outscoring them by 20 or so. But I think the point that he was trying to make is you won game 1, and in game 2, as bad as you were in the first quarter, you still made the Lakers have to play 48 minutes all the way to the end. You kind of you didn't hand them an easy W. Minnesota could have easily packed up their bags after they're down by 20 in the first quarter and just could have said, guys, we already did our job. At least we got one game here. No. They kept batting, get it down to 11. Lakers would put it back up to 18-20, get it down to 9. Like there were some moments there where if it wasn't for LeBron's key 3, I remember one possession, Anthony Edwards misses a 3 that would have cut the lead down to 6. You think Crypto would have been feeling comfortable in that position? They clearly wouldn't have. Another kind of perspective of who's in a more favorable position right now. I think if you're in Minnesota, you stole one in LA, you hung around in game 2, even though you were down by 20 at the end of the first quarter. And here's another key one. Ant really hasn't had a great game yet. I think Anthony Edwards has been, if you're talking superstar, Luka had a superstar type of game in game 2. Ant really hasn't had one of those. So I think they're waiting for an Ant game, and maybe that comes in Minnesota, where he drops 35, also has 8 assists, and also has 6 or 7 or 8 rebounds or something along those lines. I think they're also waiting for that. And then this is the last thing that I want to mention here of the Wolves' perspective of why, if you're making a case, they're in a more favorable position through 2 games. Gobert's kind of been a non-factor as well. I don't know how much that's going to change. I do think, I think there's a way too much of an overreaction here from the Lakers of trying to get Gobert in an ISO with Luka, which, by the way, I think the numbers will tell you it's not like the Lakers have this unbelievable advantage when it's that matchup, but I also think it's almost more for show. It's like, yeah, let me size up Gobert and let the crowd get into it. All that. I thought the Lakers were overreacting to that. I thought they were trying to do that way too much, in my opinion, at least in that first game. So I think if you're making a case that the Wolves are in a more favorable position after the first 2 games, those would be some of my reasons. All right, let me make a case here for the Lakers here real quick. Clearly, they obviously bounced back after that game 1 loss. Series is tied 1-1, and I think Austin Reeves has been just average. And I do think Austin Reeves will be a lot better as this series goes on. I think your depth has really not even showed up yet. I think there are games where tell me through these first 2 games, have the Lakers played a complete game in these first 2 games? Not at all. Where Minnesota played as complete of a game as you could play in game 1, Lakers have not had one of those performances. Lakers have not had one of those. They shot 45% from the 3-point line. Luka did his job. LeBron did his job. AR did his job. And then a couple role players chipped in. Lakers are going to have one of those games. That's going to eventually happen. They haven't had it yet. I think there's a lot more upside for the Lakers. I think that obviously kind of goes into that case as well. But you did lose home court advantage, so something to keep in mind. I do believe if you tell me which team is in a more favorable position through the first 2 games, I lean more towards Minnesota because they did get 1 game in LA. And I think that's kind of the foundational piece of why I think they're in a better position than the Lakers are, which is why I think, it starts becoming so much more interesting because you don't think the Lakers can go win in Minnesota? Of course they can. By the way, don't even take that from me. Before game 2, Chris Finch basically said, we're expecting a long series. And just as easy as Minnesota came into LA and got a W, the Lakers can go into Minnesota and get a win. This is not, one of these home court advantages where it's like they got no shot. No, I think actually Luka had set up some stuff, which I loved it. Luka had set up some stuff after game 2, and they were talking to him post game about what's the environment going to be on the road. He's like, oh, it's going to be an awesome environment. It's the best environment. And he was complimenting the Minnesota Timberwolves, but I think he was also talking about, yeah, I was there last year. And we had big games that we had to win on the road, and we did it in Minnesota. And I think Luka's one of those players, some of the greats around the NBA. He's one of those players that enjoys games like this. He enjoys moments like this. He enjoys going on the road, and when everyone is against you, it's almost like he feels more comfortable with it. I mean, think about different players around the NBA and just sports in general. There's certain guys that you're on the road at the hostile environment, and they're just not as comfortable. They want to be at home. Players like Luka, think of some of the top players around the league. Where are we going? We're on the road? Cool. Wait, how many people are here? 20,000? Awesome. Is everyone standing up? Awesome. Let me do something to make all their asses sit down. I think there's certain players that enjoy that moment, and I think Luka's clearly one of those players. Okay, let me take a look at some of these comments here. I know I kind of went through a lot there, so let's see if I can go back a little bit and see here. Let's see. A lot of people got an opinion there on this, on the Amen Thompson and Jimmy Butler stuff. All right, let's see here. In game 2, Minnesota locked up Luka in a leg lock and tripped him. That was dirty too. Run Wolves off the 3, exactly what the Lakers did in game 2. Let's see. AR is due to have a breakout game. That was kind of one of the cases that I was making here. I want more, better Rui. I thought Rui was okay in game 2. I thought he was okay. Has Ant had any great games against us this season? It's a good question. Here's the problem I have, honestly, looking at any old games. If Anthony Davis and Max Christie were still on the team, or D'Angelo Russell, there's nothing I could do with those games. So what I would say is, has he had a good game yet this series? And I would say he's had okay games. I don't think he's had a great game. I really don't believe that. Slee, Pat Riley once said, the series doesn't start till the home team loses one. It's a series. That's a great way to put it. I remember being asked, I kind of started doing these pre-games now, and I'm going to continue to do it. I'll do a pregame tomorrow on Friday. I'll do kind of a pregame on Sunday as well, at least through the playoffs. And I remember somebody had asked, hey, Slee, if Minnesota takes game 1, what do you think of the series? And it kind of, I wasn't prepared for that. I just assumed Lakers were definitely getting game 1. And I thought game 1 was kind of shocking to me, to be honest with you. But I remember when I was asked that question, I was like, well, if they take game 1, then we got a series. Then this is a much closer series than I, thought or anticipated. I mean, listen, I said Lakers in 6, so it's not like I'm not thinking this isn't going to be a good series. I got a lot of respect for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I just think the Lakers are a better team. But Minnesota proved through the first 2 games, not so fast, brother. Not so fast. All right, let's see what else. Everyone else has been mediocre, and maybe we're talking about some of the role players there. So even the T-Wolves had a chance to win game 4. Had a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter, game 2. I don't think so, Robert. Listen, if the closest you got to is 9, Lakers had a cushion the entire time. Did they make it more uncomfortable for the Lakers than they would have liked? Yes. But you can't tell me the closest you got to was within 9 and you think that they had a chance. No. Chance to win the game is you're down 2 and Minnesota's got the ball with 35 seconds left, right? That's a chance to win the game. I don't believe they had a chance to win game 2. 9 is just not close enough to really, really say that they had a legitimate opportunity. You got to get a lot closer than that. Let's take a look at a few more. T-Wolves, I just read that. AR is not going to get high-scoring numbers because they are bullying him with size and physicality. Yeah, I mean, listen, part of that might come because there's too much attention going to Luka or more attention going to some of the other players. So it can come. The question is going to be, under what circumstances would it come? Stop Naz Reid and Lakers win. They did that in game 2. All right, let me see if I get one more in here. I agree, 100% agree. I agree Rui and Randall more than Braun. I also like letting Randall handle the ball and scoring while focusing on stopping the rest of the Wolves. Randall's not much of a passer. Yeah, I give Julius Randle a lot of credit in that last game. He was really good in game 2. I think at 27 points. Again, but I'm with you. I want Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle focused on scoring, less focused on facilitating. So I'm with you guys on that. I think we all agree from that perspective. All right, let me see here. AD has just became a new MVP member. Thank you, AD. I appreciate you, brother. I'm going to put a link here. Somebody wants to become a new member. Join. You can be an MVP member tomorrow. Exclusive content just for members. Come on. $3 a month, and you can support the channel. AD, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much for doing that. All right, I mentioned we're going to have, yes, Anthony Davis has just become. That's who it is. He's got a burner. I mentioned we're going to have Sammy coming on here. Sammy Long, obviously, doing all the preview videos for us so far this year. Let's get Sammy in the mix here. There he is.
Sliwa.
What's up, Sammy?
What's going on?
How are you, brother?
My hair looks crazy. I didn't do the close-up beforehand.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you're doing me dirty with this.
Yeah, I can't say that. I didn't do you dirty. You're the one. You came on. I didn't have any control over this.
Yeah, I know. That's,
How are you? How are you, buddy?
Doing good, man. How about you? Playoff basketball, NFL draft, always a good day.
Yeah, you're a big NFL guy. So NFL draft today is probably a big day for me. The NFL draft is basically like a spring training game in March.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like the best reality show on earth, though.
Okay, no. Let me tell you something. And here's the absolute truth. When the Chargers were still in SD, it was a okay. What the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
You're keeping your pick. Who you drafting? What position? The moment they left San Diego, I don't have any rooting interest anymore. So
I hear you. I get it. I always love when they be in the green room and they be falling and it was like this live, who's jumping up. I'll be watching, but
kind of wildly enough, NBA draft I get into. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you told me right now, name the top 10 players coming out of the NBA draft, other than Cooper Flagg and a couple other guys. And I know this is a deep draft. It kind of a week before the draft starts, that's when I start, all right, there's this player, that player. I just don't know enough of these guys.
Yeah. I just love in the NFL draft how late it gets. So you can get like big time players late, where the NBA draft is fantastic, but we don't really know till the end of the first round, the second round, some of these pop. But I mean, we've seen, but Connect dropped and Podziemski, a lot of these guys have been having more success later on. They used to really not be the case.
All right, brother. So series tied 1 apiece. I was asking if who's in a more favorable position right now. And if you kind of try to take away, I know what Minnesota did, right? They tie up the series, or I'm sorry, they take the lead in the series, but they split in LA. So I think naturally it's very easy to say, hey, Minnesota's in a more favorable position. But if you're just looking at the actual games, we've watched 2 games so far, kind of ugly, slugfest. One game, Minnesota clicks on all cylinders. The other game looks like Lakers are going to blow them out by 20 plus, and it actually gets a little bit tighter in the fourth quarter. What do you make of the first 2 games, and which team should feel better about themselves through the first 2 games?
The easy answer would be that Minnesota tied the series and they did what they had to do. If you told Minnesota beforehand that they would be going back to Minnesota with a split, having home court advantage. So I guess in that regard, Minnesota, but I think in an odd way, all the pressure was on the Lakers, even though it was the first 2 games at home. It's kind of tough. It's an underrated part of sports. I mean, they talk about the MLB playoffs. It goes 2 at home, then 2 away, and then 1. And the chances of you winning both games at home immediately are kind of a lot. And the Lakers, there's such a narrative. Everyone picked the Lakers. ESPN did a thing where they had 10 analysts pick, and every single one of them picked the Lakers. They really played into that narrative. Anthony Edwards talked about it before the first game, about how no one picks us, and we get a shot to kind of dethrone the king. So I think the Lakers really got back on track with game 2. I think they'll actually be a lot freer. Some people think that I think this is going to be it's going to be a physical series the whole way through, but it's going to be this kind of low scoring, 94-85. Lakers 95 in the first game, 94 in the second. I think they're going to be able to play a little bit freer on the road in a weird way, knowing they kind of got that first win off their back.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that now the pressure shifts to Minnesota. I put it here in my notes. Who is there more pressure on in game 3? I think it is Minnesota, because if you're following up on, we got one in LA, then let me just play something out for you. Tomorrow night, Lakers in Minnesota. If by the time I'm doing my post-game show, I'm telling you Lakers are up 2-1, there is now some real desperation for Minnesota. You got a game 4 where you can go down 3-1. You got Luka and LeBron. The problem with those two players, such high IQ players, that there becomes they can smell some blood in the water, right? They're now all of a sudden guys like Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels. There isn't no loose basketball. You got to hit these shots while you're at home, because you're on the verge of potentially going down 3-1. I know I'm jumping way ahead.
Oh yeah,
but I think there is this pressure that now comes. If there was no pressure on Minnesota before, game 1 was as loose as you can possibly be. Game 3 at home, series tied 1-1. That's not the pressure is only kind of going up. And I think the higher the pressure goes, I think that's more of an advantage to the Lakers, because they just got guys that have more experience.
In the whole road aspect of it, I get it. Minnesota's a tough place to play. It's going to be rocking. But I don't worry about that with this team. I mean, Luka's played in massive games in the NBA Finals last year, went and beat this Minnesota team last year. LeBron's played in a
he didn't have any trouble on the road last year.
No, he didn't have any trouble. LeBron's played in a gazillion big games. I mean, hell, all those times when he was with the Cavs and he was just him going into Boston, it felt like it was him versus the world. So the Lakers in that regard of going on the road, I've never worried that the Lakers can't go on the road and get a victory. I know the road record wasn't as good as the home, but that was kind of skewed because of the Eastern Conference. And to your point about the pressures on the Timberwolves, I agree. Just like the way some people want to discredit the Lakers win against Oklahoma City, where they shot lights out, beat them by 40, they go, well, they shot an amazing game. That's not going to happen over 7 games. I think the same could be said for Minnesota in the first game. Jaden McDaniels, 25 points. Law of averages work out. We saw
he was 11 of 13 from the field. I've said it since that performance. I'm like, guys, never in his NBA career is he going to go 11 of By the way, if Rui went 11 for 13, I'm like, yeah, that's never happened again. Like, this isn't even a shot at Jaden McDaniels. I mean, Kawhi went 15 of 19 in game 2, and Minnesota it's like the most unheard of stat line I've ever seen. This is Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, and then they want to flip the other way. Well, they shot 5 of 25 from 3, not very good. Well, the Lakers shot 6 of 29. And much like that kind of first game against, we're going to get in the Rockets Warriors series later, but it felt like in the first game when they were fully healthy, when the Rockets were held the Warriors to, it was like 80 points, 5 minutes to go. You drew that up on paper. You go, that's a spot for them to win. That's how they need to play. The Timberwolves, you'd have told anyone before the game, hold the Lakers to 94 points. You go, maybe the Lakers are going down 0-2. Yeah. But the Lakers defense was off the charts. And looking at the rebounding stats, the Lakers actually out-rebounded how big they were and how physical they were, 41-34. I think that was a big aspect with Jackson Hayes basically in foul trouble the entire time. I thought it was a pretty gritty performance, and the scoring will come for the Lakers.
Okay, let me – and I'm gonna shift a little bit because I want to give Minnesota credit. I do think that they are – this is kind of it's an ugly series. And I think they have better depth than the Lakers do. We'll see how reliable, these players are. I thought Dante DiVincenzo, I'm like, game 2, watch out for him. He didn't do anything. There's certain players that I thought would perform more. But I think if you're Minnesota, clearly you have a blueprint of how to beat the Lakers. And it doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it. It actually, I don't even know if it matters of who the opponent is. This is how Minnesota wins. Anthony Edwards, whatever he does offensively, he's also getting others involved. Julius Randle, whatever he does offensively, he's also getting others involved. And then you need 2 or 3 other guys. It doesn't matter who it is. Naz Reid, Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels. You pick Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert. I mean, Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert have almost had very, very little impact.
0 points from Mike Conley last game.
I mean, very little impact. I mean, even Gobert, I think a 6-6 game, what really has his impact been? I think Minnesota's also probably sitting back and saying, well, we haven't played our best game technically. I know they shot 50% from the 3-point line. A lot of role players tend to play better at home. Has Minnesota impressed you, or is this kind of what you were expecting from them? For me, I think where they've impressed me the most is, man, they're locked down on defense too. I give them all the credit in the world of what they've done on the defensive side.
Yeah, I mean, playing down the stretch, they won 17-21, so this was a team to be reckoned with. And they're kind of feel like an inverse of the Rockets a little bit, where they're very similar in that they play really good defense and they rebound a lot. The Wolves have the superstar of Anthony Edwards that they don't have. Credit to Jalen Green, he had 38 points last night, but they don't have the number one,
the go-to,
the go-to. But the Rockets probably are deeper. They just have Jabari Smith, a lot, Amen Thompson, a lot of kind of better role players. Yeah, I've been impressed with the Timberwolves, how physical it's been. It's kind of been fun watching the first 2 games in the sense of it feels like a little bit 90s style of basketball. I didn't love how tight the whistle was for both ways on the other night. It really felt like there was not a lot of flow in the game. But
can I tell you something real quick about that? Here's the problem with that. Both teams are they could have called 15 more fouls on each team. Like I think. I don't know if they want to blow the whistle that much. I think they're almost left with no choice because these squads are playing, and it's kind of, I think the playoffs in general, part of the reason why I started the show, or when I started the show today, I talked a little bit about how I feel like the playoffs are taking a little bit more of an old school approach, and it feels like it's a lot more physical.
Yeah, I heard I was listening to Colin Cowherd, and they were making the point that it's not good when there's not as much scoring. And I totally disagree with that. I think the knock on is you and I love the NBA. All the listeners love the NBA, but the people who have knocked the NBA have said there's no defense play. There's none of this.
I think people like this. I think they like this style.
I love, and I think something that's added to these playoffs is the kind of rivalries. I mean, the Bucks and the Pacers do not like each other. Halliburton was talking about it yesterday. Anthony Edwards and Luka chirping back and forth the whole game. The Draymond Green getting in a fight last night with Van Vliet and them. I think it's added something to these playoffs where we've seen like the highest ratings in 25 years, just kind of the competitiveness of it.
Okay. Give me a couple keys to tomorrow's. Now, just to let everybody know, and I think people already know by now, Sammy does a preview video before every Lakers game. So that will be coming out tonight. And we'll put that preview video out so he'll get you kind of ready for game 3. Can you give us a little bit of an idea what you're thinking about for game 3?
Yeah. So the comments kind of talking about it right now. Jackson Hayes is a real wild card for me. I thought had an awful game. Just to keep it blunt, 5 fouls. He was like stupid fouls, not even just contesting people at the rim. It was just sloppy, out of position on a few of them. Just
bad goaltend as well.
Bad goaltend. And I thought he was going to be a big factor in this series. And I think that's also contributed to, Alan, you made a great point yesterday about how it feels like the attacking of Rudy Gobert and how the Lakers have had a lot of success doing it has almost kind of changed the offense a little bit, and that we're going to try to expose him. I thought at the end of the game, it was too much standing around. It was Luka's turn, then it was Reeves' turn, then it was LeBron, and everyone would just kind of get out the way. And the Lakers are at their best when they're sitting in the corner with Vincent and Finney Smith, these guys, and kicking for threes. I thought that Jackson Hayes can help with that if he's out there, not in shooting threes, but in terms of kind of easy lob threats. When Minnesota was coming back, it would have been nice to just have an easy bucket down the lane. But he had an awful night. And I'd like to see, not get a lot of minutes, but I'd love to see Kinnett get a few minutes here. And I know he's kind of been out of the rotation for a little minute, but Vincent was working so hard on defense, and Finney Smith, I thought, had a great game. But there's something you said for the Lakers need some corner shooting, and they're not super hot right now. I would throw Kinnett in some spot minutes to try to get the 3 ball going a little bit, because the Lakers only shot 6 of 29 too, where they only shot 5 of 25. I think that could be a big thing for them. I know he doesn't play a lot of defense, but in this game, I think the margins are so tight that a little scoring would help.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it could be one of those situations where you try him for 5 minutes, see how it goes. And maybe it's a spark on offense that you didn't have, or if he's such a defensive liability, or he just doesn't know what he's doing, or maybe it's the moment because, getting some playoff action in a meaningful game on the road, maybe that's a little intimidating to him. But I do get where to try it out. The question is going to be, you trust Jordan Goodwin more, or do you trust Dalton Connect? And I think the answer there is Jordan Goodwin, especially because you feel like he can play some D.
Are you surprised that they haven't just stuck Vando on Ant the whole game?
No, and I tell you why. I don't think Ant's really had a great game yet, right? I don't think Ant has been – I think constantly – I mean, you saw post game where Ant said that he was kind of a little bit confused about the Lakers' defense.
Yeah,
I think there is a little bit more of a by committee right now. And there's sometimes Lakers are playing a partial zone. Like I think there's certain things that they're doing that if you told me Ant was going off and they just said, all right, we're going basically box and one. Vando, wherever Ant goes, you go with him, and then everybody else will take everything else. I just don't feel like Ant's created something for the Lakers to overreact.
Yeah, and Anthony Edwards coming into the series, that was kind of one of the keys was is he going to be able to make the right pass? Because they're going to run him out the line. It felt like watching that game too, how many cross-court passes that the Wolves were just bad at. I mean, they were baiting them. They were kind of sitting in the soft corner on the other side, and just Vincent had a couple steals. LeBron had one or two. It felt like they were just kind of waiting for it, and it's going to be interesting at home. Does Ant try to play hero and just kind of put up 30 shots, or are they a little more settled in the offense? I think to your point about Gobert and Conley not doing anything has really hurt them offensively.
All right, final one on this, and then I want to kind of jump around a couple of these other series. Where can we go here? Trying to think here if I want to go on the Reeves side of things, or how about this? How about Laker role players so far? What have you felt about the Laker role players? Because I think coming in, Minnesota, listen, if they do have an advantage from a role player perspective, but I think last game also showed they're not a lock. I mean, Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards are the only two players to score in double figures. So what have you made of the Laker role players so far this series?
Yeah, disappointing in the first game. Obviously, Dorian Finney-Smith and Vincent combined.
Nothing.
They made one shot apiece, and that's unacceptable. I mean, I think that was – yeah, LeBron and Reeves did not have good games, but that kind of storyline really went under the radar, how the role players did nothing. I think from a defensive standpoint, they've been great. Vincent and Finney-Smith in game 2 really took it to the next level. It was kind of interesting hearing Finney-Smith be so honest after game 1 about how he said his lack of offense actually kind of affected him defensively. Mm-hmm. I was surprised he said that, but I guess that's kind of what I like about this team is they're very honest in post games. JJ is extremely blunt. He'll tell you like it is. So from a defensive perspective in game 2, I like the adjustments they've made. But again, that's where I go back to the connect thing. They got to hit more shots. And it's really started with, I get that they're a lengthy team and McDaniels as a third defender is tough for Reeves and everything. But it can't just be iso ball at the end of these games, especially on the road, because if they're getting on a run, the crowd's going to be rocking. Sure. And I get it. You want Luka taking the last shot. You want LeBron. At the end, I understand that. But when the Lakers are at their best, the driving kick is there. And especially, as I said earlier, with Hayes, if they could find a way to kind of get the pick and roll back in the offense, if he doesn't commit dumb fouls early in the game where they got to take him out and be such a liability defensively, this is a series where you really thought that Hayes could have dominated because you have a traditional big in Gobert that you'd be able to kind of just sit in the paint with. I understand him not playing in a Warriors series because that's just kind of a tough matchup for him. But I've been really disappointed in him. I want him to step up. I'd also like Connect to get some minutes just for some offensive scoring.
All right, if Lakers end up winning this series, we got a long way to go. Yesterday, I was asked about it. About hey, Lakers championship run, things along those lines. I'm like, championship run? What the hell? They're tied 1-1 against Minnesota in the first round. I can't think past that. But if they were to get past Minnesota, you start looking at that Rockets, the Golden State Warriors series. That series just completely shifts. Now everything comes down to an MRI for Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, totally.
And even if that MRI comes back where he's okay, does not feel like Jimmy Butler would be the same exact player as he was before that fall. Just your thoughts through the first 2 games in that series, and obviously the big injury to Jimmy Butler yesterday.
It totally changes everything. I mean, with Butler, they're 23-7. Without, they're 25-27. And you go back.
And I wonder what the stat is, because I know they had a stat at one point where they're both playing together. Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, the even that is a lot better than whatever the stat you.
Yeah, they had like one loss, something. I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, the Warriors completely changed, obviously, because with Jimmy Butler, you get to the free throw line. And the Warriors historically do not shoot free throws, and it just makes sense stylistically, offensively, because they're jacking up so many threes. They don't really get fouled in the middle. This is a bad matchup for them if Butler's out, because Houston is a really good defense. They're 5th overall. They're number 1 in rebounding. I think the lack of size really comes out with no Jimmy Butler, because then you're going to need Podziemski or one of these. Kuminga's got to play. That's the wild card, I guess.
Kuminga not just got to play. Kuminga's got to be a huge piece for them.
Yeah, Kerr's got to figure it out, because he can't just be sitting on the bench, especially if Butler's not there, because he does give you that upside. The Lakers, I definitely think the Warriors, that's just a great series. It's who's going to play better. Is it Luka or LeBron, or is it Jimmy or Steph? It'd be such a shift from playing Minnesota, where they're so big and physical, and you have one superstar, to maybe the smallest team in the NBA, but you have 2 lethal scorers and great outside shooting. So Lakers would definitely need to pick it up. I think the Lakers playing Houston, if they get past this series against Minnesota, they might be the most prepared they've ever been, because Minnesota really is just the Rockets.
A lot of similarities.
I think they might be a little bit better, just because Edwards has a lot more upside than, again, Jalen Green, 38 points, huge game from him. But can we really expect that night in, night out? And I think, like, who's taking the last shot for the Rockets? Last night they blew them out, so they didn't have to have this conversation. But Fred VanVleet at the end of game 1 was jacking up all kinds of shots all over the yard, couldn't hit anything. Dylan Brooks and him really seemed to think that they were gonna run it at the end, because they were the veterans. The only way the Rockets have a shot is if Green and Jabari Smith and Thompson are the guys taking it. Because
that's why they're a year away. I think because of what you just said right there, they're going to need that additional player. Now, if they get past the Warriors, it's probably because maybe Jimmy Butler just was never healthy again. I picked the Rockets even with Jimmy Butler healthy. So I could be way off on that prediction as well. We'll see what happens. But I think what you just said about, I mean, hell, one of the worst teams in the NBA in the last few minutes of a game is Minnesota. And that's with a closer in Anthony Edwards.
Right.
Even though he hasn't been efficient in some of these closing, Houston doesn't even have a player like that. So I think that part is obviously something to keep in mind. All right, let's jump. I think what is the best series so far, at least in the first round. I know we're only a couple of games in, but Clippers and Denver, game 3 tonight. And it feels like, I said this yesterday, that hypothetically, let's say Aaron Gordon dunks that ball late in the game. He misses the dunk. Michael Porter doesn't have that bad turnover where I don't even really know what he was doing, but loses the ball, and the Clippers get a 3 out of it. If Denver would have won that game and they're up 2-0, it didn't feel like either team up 2-0 represented what the series has been. Totally. I think 1-1 is the right, that's the right number for this series. What's your take tonight in game 3 as Clippers now are at home?
Clippers, I saw favored by 5.5. I think that's Vegas telling you something about Michael Porter Jr. maybe not going to play. He is a questionable with a game time decision, but that big of a spread, 5.5. I expected if he's there, it's probably more like a 3.5. Porter's definitely worth a couple points, especially with the lack of depth that Denver has. My biggest thing from game 1 to game 2 for the Clippers was game 1 at the end of the game. My biggest question mark going in that series is Kawhi taking the last shot? Is James Harden going to fall back to the old James Harden where he's shooting 30 times a game, even though he's really kind of taking his game to another level, being a distributor, kind of more of a point guard? And then I think you saw, we've talked about it a gazillion times, Ramon, the end of Murray and Jokic. The end of the game, they just go to those two, and it's money time. And then in game 2, it totally flipped. It was like Kawhi was the guy. They figured out Kawhi is the dude. He had 39 points. He went off for them. He's taking the last shot, and everyone else kind of fall in line. Norman Powell hit the big 3 there at the end. So
can I say this, Sammy? But if you think about the players that you just named off, wherever the play is going, they got options, and they got reliable options, right? Like even saying Norman Powell, maybe a casual NBA fan doesn't know that much about Norman Powell. It's a good player.
He's a really good
player. And that's not a guy that's like forcing shots. It's more of kind of understands
scorer for most of the year.
Exactly. It understands his role. I think Harden has adjusted and is kind of like, whatever you need me to do. I think the other key piece of this is Ty Lue. And Ty Lue is a coach that also, understands. So I think for both of these teams, that's what I think makes this series so fascinating. Both of these teams have reliable players, have guys at the end of games they can go to, have vets that have been in the league for a long time. I mean, I know no Laker fan here needs to know that Denver has reliable players. Just go watch the last 2 playoff rounds the Lakers had against Denver. When they needed a bucket, they knew what to do. But I do think that part makes it more fascinating.
In the first game, it feels like at the end, and I don't like either team, I'll just be blunt, but watching the game, is they went away from Zubac. Zubac is the one matchup for Denver you look at in the Western Conference and go, they have a traditional center to kind of give Jokic some hell. And from when they were kind of nursing that 7-point lead through most of the game, they were really, really playing well. And it was Zubac was the center. I think and then they went away from him in the fourth and overtime. Russ had the big block and a couple big plays there. But if Porter Jr. can't go, or if he's banged up, that's bad because this team does not have enough depth.
No.
That means Russell Westbrook's going to be taking way too many shots tonight.
Yeah, look at what Michael Porter did basically after being called out by Jokic after game 1. I think it was 14 and 14. 14 rebounds for Michael Porter Jr. in game 2. That doesn't typically happen. All right, give us an idea. So tonight, what time could we be expecting a little preview action for game 3?
I was gonna have it done by 4 o'clock if everyone was there early.
Not messing around here. You know how big of a game this is. Okay.
We got to let it breathe a little bit.
There you go. All right, Sammy, great stuff, brother. We'll look forward to that. Sammy will be putting up a preview video, a little bit longer versions of some of these pre-games just because of the playoffs and everything. So please keep an eye out for that. Thank you, buddy.
Alan, you're the best, brother.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, that is Sammy Long right there. Good work, Sammy. Good work. Hard-working man there, that Sammy Long. Hard-working man. Okay, I'm going to start looking at some of your comments. I got a couple things in the NBA that I'm going to get to, so we're going to do all that here in just a few minutes. Quick shout-out here to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Phenomenal partner. I've kind of talked about Brad Wallace now being a partner of the show. About a little over a month ago, him and I did a podcast together, and it was so great to kind of see him talk a little bit about a specific case that he was working on with Home Depot. And then we got, kind of the final results of this. So he's been working with one of his clients against Home Depot for the last 5 years. I want to give you guys an actual example. Home Depot didn't settle with Brad and the Wallace firm, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He took them to trial. A few weeks back, following a 2-week trial, which included Brad's closing arguments at the Van Nuys Courthouse in Los Angeles County, the jury delivered a $4.6 million verdict on behalf of the Wallace firm's client and found Home Depot responsible for nearly $3 million of that amount, which was significantly more than Home Depot's higher pretrial offer on the case. Why do I share that story with you guys? I share it because if something happened in your family's life or your specific life and you need an injury attorney, I just want you guys to know that you got one of the best in the business that's a partner of this channel, somebody that I've known for over 5 years, somebody that was working with me when I was over at 710 ESPN. He wanted me to do his ad reads, and then here he is following me on YouTube. Just want you to know you got somebody that you can rely on and you could depend on. So we put our URL here, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. wallacewins.com/Sliwa, or you can click on the description. I got a link there as well. I can make a personal introduction to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Either way, he's a proud partner. He's making it happen in the state of California. He can help anybody in the state of California, and hopefully that $4.6 million verdict is a great example of how Brad Wallace could potentially help you or a family member as well. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. All right, let's take a look at some of the comments here. Get into some of the comments. I'm a fan of Ant-Man. He has a chip on his shoulder. He shows flashes of MJ and a little bit of Kobe. Yeah, I'm not, if I could be honest with you, I'm not a fan of making comparisons to two of the greatest players to ever play the game. But I know that happens. I think that just kind of I think that just naturally comes with it. Last year after the playoffs or during the playoffs, everybody's comparing him to Jordan. I'm like, guys, can you relax? Can we get a couple other players, that are top 50 in the NBA, not the arguably the greatest player to ever play the game? But I get it. I do understand where that comes from. Sammy is a pro. Sammy's doing a great job. Phenomenal job. Let's see what else we got here. When Luka played the Clippers back in the day, he made Zubats unplayable. Well, they got a couple rounds to go if we're going to go see that again. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, let me get into a couple other things. I'm going to read a couple quotes here real quick. I thought it was kind of funny. Players, The Athletic did play. It's kind of actually pretty funny. They've been doing this. The Athletic does their annual NBA player poll, and they quizzed 150 players across all 30 teams, and some of the questions were about the Luka trade. I'm going to read off some of these quotes here. I think this is all anonymous. I don't think anybody puts a name to it, but anyways, I thought it was pretty funny. How many different players reacted and what they said when they saw the trade? Here's one. F, I was shocked. I didn't think that was possible. Okay. Another one. It was disbelief. I thought it was a joke, thought it was a prank. Another one. I thought it was fake. I started texting a bunch of people. Another one. I didn't believe it for a second. I talked to my agent and he confirmed it. Okay. That was kind of one of the reactions. Here's the other reactions. Bad trade. Keep him. Generational player. The dumbest idea ever. I don't like it. I thought it was a bad trade. I'm just reading, some of these kind of random ones. Bad for Mavs business. Bad work. Good for the Lakers, though. Stupid. If Luka can get traded, everyone can get traded. So it's kind of messed up the way the NBA ruins their league. So these are obviously how people felt. Okay. A different type of reaction. Terrible decision. If Luka came in weighing 500 pounds, so what? He's still averaging damn near a 30-point triple-double per game. They just kind of go on. Some of these quotes, some of them are really, long, but there were some sides of this, where I think some people did have a reaction that they thought, a win-win. So there were some quotes out here. I see both sides. A lot of people want to say it was dumb. I see the vision. I could see both teams benefiting. I think the Lakers probably benefited a little bit more as far as longevity, but if Dallas wants to win now, it's not a bad move. So there were, some people that felt a different way, but I just thought it was funny. Some of the quotes that you're grabbing from there, they were all over the place. They were definitely all over the place. All right, let's see what else. We got here. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, last thing I want to get into here real quick, and we kind of preview a little bit Clippers and Denver. We know how big that game is going to be. Here are the other games going on tonight, so something to keep in mind. OKC Memphis on TNT. New York at Detroit. I'm looking forward to this game. This is actually one of the games I'm really looking forward to tonight. The Knicks and the Pistons tied at 1 apiece. Detroit, phenomenal game too to win at the Garden. Even after they gave up that in game 1, there was a stretch there where Knicks went on a 21-0 run when the Pistons had the lead. So for them to bounce back in that game, phenomenal. I expect nothing from Memphis at this point, to be honest with you. I don't know if anybody's got faith in them making it a series against OKC. And then the last game is going to be Denver at the Clippers. That game is at 7:00. So that should be a fun game. All right, let me see if there's a last couple of comments here that we get to, and then we are going to call it a day. Let's see. Once Cuban lost control. Let's see what we got here. And all right. Okay. So a lot of comments, people, they're kind of doing their own thing here. So I'm going to let them do their own thing. All right, my people, here's what we got. So just give everyone a quick idea. Tomorrow morning, I'm back on at 8 a.m. A little bit later today, Sammy Long's going to have the preview video for Game 3. Lakers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Tomorrow's going to be a very busy day. Tomorrow, I do a show at 8 a.m. After the show, I'm going to do a members show, MVP members only show. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a pregame show tomorrow as well before Lakers take on Minnesota. And then, of course, we'll take on the postgame show. So very, very busy day tomorrow. But, it's fun. You don't have too many games where you're in the playoffs. And for everything we did for the 82 games, this is the best part of the year. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Please subscribe to the channel if you guys don't mind. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your morning. I will see you guys tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.